Hey everyone, welcome back to the final game in the Pauper Duel Commander tournament that we are running. Today we have Aegar the Freezing Flame versus Plaguecrafter. Both have done very well in the tournament and we're really excited to see how this game goes. Plaguecrafter was my pick to win the whole thing, so it's fun to see them in the final. I thought Disciple of Deceit would do better, but they lost to Aegar in the semifinal, and so Aegar finds itself facing down Plaguecrafter to see who will be the champion of the tournament. You guys probably know this by now, but Aegar is a tempo deck that's red-blue. And Plaguecrafter is a control deck that focuses on discard and sacrifice. Mono black. So without anything else, let's jump into it. Aegar wins the die roll and starts us off with one of the new fetch lands and fetches up an island tapped. Plaguecrafter plays a Bojuka Bog and passes back. Aegar plays a Burning Prophet and passes back. Plaguecrafter draws and plays a Swamp as land for turn and then pays 2 for a cast down, killing the Burning Prophet. On his turn, Aegar draws and plays a land for turn, and then plays Aegar the Freezing Flame for 3. At this point, Plaguecrafter decides to develop a little bit of a board before playing his commander, and plays an Aether Poisoner. Maybe he should have respected the commander more and just played Plaguecrafter to kill it, but he decided that he had a turn. On his turn, Aegar played Skred, and killed the Aether Poisoner, and then draws for Aegar's ability. And then pays 2 for a Skyfeeder Strix, a 1/2 flyer that gets +1/+0 whenever Aegar plays a non-creature spell. He attacks for 3 with his commander and passes back. On his turn, Plaguecrafter draws and plays a land for turn, and then pays 1 for a Defile, killing the commander. He then pays 2 for Sign in Blood, going to 20, and passes back. Aegar untaps and draws, and pays 1 for a Warlord's Fury, giving his creatures first strike and drawing a card. Skyfeeder Strix gets +1/+0 and attacks for 2. Aegar then pays 3 for a We Dragonauts, a 1/3 flyer that gets +2/+0 whenever Aegar plays an instant or sorcery. Plaguecrafter pays 4 for a Bushmeat Poacher and passes back. On his turn, Aegar untaps and draws, and pays 1 for a Robe of Mirrors, putting it on the We Dragonauts. He then pays 2 for a Fist of Flame, targeting Skyfeeder Strix, and draws a card. He does some combat math, and then attacks for 8 in the air, taking Plaguecrafter to 10. Plaguecrafter untaps and draws and plays a Swamp as land for turn, and then pays 3 for his commander, Plaguecrafter. The trigger goes on the stack, and in response, he sacks Plaguecrafter to Bushmeat Poacher and gains 2 life, and draws a card. With the trigger still on the stack, he plays Deadly Dispute, sacrificing his commander and drawing 2 cards and making a trigger token. The trigger then resolves, and he discards a Swamp. Aegar sacrifices his Skyfeeder Strix. On his turn, Aegar pays 2 and delves his graveyard for a Treasure Cruise, drawing 3 cards. He then plays a Volcanic Hammer, dealing 3 to Plaguecrafter, taking him to 9, and then attacking for 5 in the air with We Dragonauts, taking Plaguecrafter to 4. Plaguecrafter decides that he needs to dig to find an answer, so he plays Night's Whisper, losing 2 and going to 2 life and drawing 2 cards. He finds a Fleshbag Marauder and plays it, sacrificing the We Dragonauts and the Fleshbag Marauder. And he passes back. Aegar untaps and draws, and tutors with a Muddle the Mixture to grab a burn spell, and then plays Royal Eruption for 3, killing Plaguecrafter. Alright, that was game 1, 8 turns, and Aegar comes out on top. Plaguecrafter will be on the play for game 2. He starts with the swamp and passes back. Aegar starts with a tap land, and he passes back. Plaguecrafter plays a second swamp and passes. Aegar starts with a Festival Crasher for 2. On his turn, Plaguecrafter plays a swamp and then pays 3 for a Filigree Familiar, gaining 2 life. Aegar untaps and draws and plays a mountain as land for turn, and then pays 2 for Come to the River, bouncing the Filigree Familiar and giving the Festival Crasher +2/+0. He then plays a Chain Lightning, burning Plaguecrafter in the face, and attacks for 5 with Festival Crasher. On his turn, Plaguecrafter plays a swamp as land for turn, and then pays 4 for a Vicious Battle Rager, gaining the initiative and going to the first level of the dungeon, searching up a swamp from his library. On his turn, Aegar untaps and pays 4 for a Crimson Fleet Commodore, getting Monarch and drawing a card at end of turn. Plaguecrafter untaps and draws and triggers the initiative again, which he forgot to do but does now, putting 2 +1 counters on the Battle Rager. He then plays a Thorn of the Black Rose and drawing a card at end of turn. Aegar pays 2 for an Impulse during main phase, looking at the top 4 and putting 1 in his hand. He grabs a card and then plays a Path of Ancestry as land for turn, and then pays 2 for an elusive Spellfist that becomes unblockable when he plays an instant or sorcery, or a non-creature spell. On his turn, Plaguecrafter triggers initiative and goads the Crimson Fleet Commodore, and then pays 2 for a Burglar Rat. He then pays 3 for his commander, Plaguecrafter, sacrificing the Burglar Rat and making Aegar sacrifice a creature. Aegar sacrifices the goaded Crimson Fleet Commodore, and at end of turn, Plaguecrafter draws and passes. On his turn, Aegar cycles a Muddle Mixture to grab a Fire Prophecy, and then plays Fire Prophecy on the Thorn of the Black Rose, putting a card from his hand on the bottom of his library and drawing a card. This makes the elusive Spellfist unblockable, allowing him to attack and take initiative and Monarch. He searches his library for a land and draws a card at end of turn, and passes back. On his turn, Plaguecrafter pays 3 and 2 life for a Read the Bones. He then pays 1 for a Defile, killing the unblockable elusive Spellfist, and then pays 3 for a Filigree Familiar. He attacks with his Battle Rager and his commander, and gets initiative and Monarch. He triggers initiative and gets a 4/1 skeleton token with Menace. And he draws for Monarch at end of turn. On his turn, Aegar draws and plays a land, and then pays 3 for his commander, Aegar the Freezing Flame, scrying 1 and putting it on bottom. Then plays a Burning Prophet for 2. Finally, he plays an Incinerate on the Menace token, which triggers his commander and pumps the Festival Crasher. He scries 1 off Burning Prophet and then attacks with the Festival Crasher. Plaguecrafter blocks with the Filigree Familiar and draws a card. On his turn, he gets the 4th level of the dungeon and triggers the ultimate. Flip 10 cards, put a creature into play, put 3 counters on it, give it hexproof until next turn. He hits another initiative creature, the Underdark Explorer, which comes into play as an 8/6 and allows him to restart the dungeon on level 1 again getting him a land from his library to put in his hand. He then draws for turn, plays a swamp, and then pays 2 for Victim of Night, killing Aegar the Freezing Flame. And then plays 1 for a Unearth, putting the Filigree Familiar back into play and gaining 2 life. He then attacks with the Battle Rager and his Commander. Aegar decides not to block and goes to 13. On his turn, Aegar untaps and draws and plays an island as land for turn. And then pays 3 for a Fiery Cannonade, dealing 2 to everything. This kills the Plaguecrafter and the Filigree Familiar, and Plaguecrafter draws a card. Aegar scries 1 for Burning Prophet's ability, and then pays 5 for his commander, Aegar the Freezing Flame, and scries 1 for the Path of Ancestry. He attacks with both the Burning Prophet and the Festival Crasher. The Underdark Explorer blocks the Festival Crasher, and Aegar takes Monarch and the initiative, putting 2/+1 counters on his commander, making it a 5/5. He draws a card at end of turn and passes. On his turn, Plaguecrafter untaps and draws, and he does not get the trigger initiative this turn because he lost it. He plays a swamp as his land for turn, and then pays 2 for a Novice Occultist, which draws a card when it dies. He then pays 5 for his commander, Plaguecrafter, sacrificing the Occultist, losing a life, and drawing a card. Aegar sacrifices the Burning Prophet. He then attacks with the Underdark Explorer and the Battle Rager. Aegar has no good blocks and decides to just take it, going to 2. But Plaguecrafter has other plans and pays 1 for a Lash of Malice on the Underdark Explorer, giving it +2, -2, which kills Aegar exactly and ends the game. So that was game 2, and now we are moving on to game 3. They're 1-1, and Aegar is on the play with a tap land. Plaguecrafter plays a swamp as land for turn and passes back. Aegar untaps and draws and plays a mountain as land for turn, and then plays a Firebrand Archer. At end of turn, Plaguecrafter pays 1 for a Fungal Infection, killing the Firebrand Archer and getting a 1/1 Saproling token. He untaps and draws and plays a swamp as land for turn. And then, putting himself in a very good position, he plays a Ravenous Rat and attacks for 1 with the Saproling token. Aegar decides that he's going to have to work through the commander eventually and plays his own commander, Aegar the Freezing Flame, for 3. Plaguecrafter decides to show exactly how his deck works when it's humming along and plays his commander, Plaguecrafter, and then attacks for 1 with the Ravenous Rats. Aegar plays an island as land for turn and then pays 4 for a Pyre Hound, a 2/3 with trample that gets bigger whenever I play an instant or sorcery. On his turn, Plaguecrafter pays 4 for a Thorn of the Black Rose, getting Monarch, and then attacks for 3 with his commander, taking Aegar to 20. Aegar untaps and draws, and then decides to play a Braid for 2, killing the Thorn of the Black Rose, and giving a +1 counter to his Pyre Hound. He attacks for 3 trample and takes Monarch. At the end of turn, he draws and passes back. Plaguecrafter untaps and draws and plays a swamp as land for turn, and then pays 5 for a Grey Merchant at Asphodel. He attacks for 1 with the rat and takes back Monarch and draws. Aegar untaps and draws, and then plays an island as a land for turn. He pays 2 for a Searing Spear on Plaguecrafter, putting it back in the command zone, and then gets a +1 counter on his Pyrehound. He pays 2 more for an Incinerate to face, taking Plaguecrafter to 23, making his Pyrehound big enough to attack through the Gary. He attacks for 5 trample. Plaguecrafter decides not to block and loses Monarch. On his turn, Plaguecrafter untaps and draws and plays a Swamp as land for turn, and then decides to recast his commander for 5, sacrificing the Ravenous Rats and making Aegar sacrifice the Pyrehound. He attacks with Gary for 2, taking back Monarch and taking Aegar to 13. He draws for Monarch at end of turn. Aegar untaps and draws and plays a Consider for 1, putting it in his graveyard and drawing a card. With nothing else, he passes back. Plaguecrafter untaps and draws and plays a Swamp as land for turn. He then attacks with both for 5, taking Aegar to 8. In second main phase, he plays a Phyrexian Rager, losing 1 and drawing 1. He then pays 4 for a Bushmeat Poacher. In response, Aegar plays Deprive, bouncing an island back to his hand and countering the Bushmeat Poacher. On his turn, he untaps and draws and pays 5 for his commander, Aegar the Freezing Flame. Plaguecrafter untaps and draws. He plays a Swamp as land for turn. And then pays 3 for Read the Bones. He then pays 3 for an Oubliette, phasing out Aegar the Freezing Flame, and he attacks for 7, taking Aegar to 1. In second main phase, he plays Sign in Blood to finish out the tournament and deal 2 to Aegar the Freezing Flame, killing him and winning the tournament. So with that, Plaguecrafter is the winner of the tournament. Who would have thought that the tournament would end with a Sign in Blood for 2 life, killing Aegar the Freezing Flame? What a heads-up play and a fun match by both Plaguecrafter and Aegar. Plaguecrafter really showing what that deck is supposed to do in that last game. It's interesting to see how much Initiative and Monarch played into those games. It really was a sub-game of fighting back and forth over those cards to see who could pick up and keep an advantage. Plaguecrafter was able to keep the board clear enough and hold on and win in the end. Thank you for watching this. It's been a blast. Here's the final results of the tournament. If you missed any games, go back and watch them. It's been a lot of fun. We're going to be starting a new tournament in a couple weeks with a couple new decks, so stick around for that. If you like this video, please hit like, and if you want to support the channel, please hit subscribe. That's the best way to support us. Thanks for watching this all the way to the end. Have a great one, and I'll see you next time.